Hello again, book lovers, and what to make of this, The Volunteer, the true story of the resistance hero who infiltrated Auschwitz. This is by Jack Fairweather, who's a war correspondent for The Telegraph, amongst others. The Wall Street Journal reviewer said, "Few books have enthralled, incensed and haunted me as The Volunteer has done. There were times I felt compelled to set it aside. There were others when hours of reading passed in what felt like moments." Which is a good place to start, because that's what happened to me. We know what we're letting ourselves in for. Auschwitz. Back then it was Oświęcim, which was a Polish village. And if you're a Polish guy, getting up in the morning and finding out the Germans are on your doorstep and they begin the occupation, and you hear rumours about this camp in what's now called Auschwitz, and you're part of the underground, and you think that by infiltrating the camp you may be able to promote the resistance from there. Obviously, Witold Pilecki, the true life hero of this story, had no idea. It's a story that's quite well known in Poland and possibly should be more well known outside of Poland. The idea of the volunteer, the title, is that he actually willingly went into Auschwitz, and that is true, but there is a little backstory to it involving politics and anti-Semitism among the Polish resistance, which, if that's piqued your interest, that's something to read at the start of the book. However, in he goes. As I said, we know what to expect. He has no idea. He gets 2 teeth smashed out of his mouth on the first day for pausing too long while washing, I think, or something like that. So you can imagine the shock that these people feel, and also they see the Jews being herded off. They see gradually over the weeks and months the construction of this death camp, the realisation of what's happening, the desperate attempts to get messages out, the constant cruelty, and that's the part obviously where you think, oh, I've just got to have a rest here. And again, I've said it before, I just read so much about the horrors of the past. Let's focus here on the Nazis, the kind of the well-known to-hand example of how humanity can somehow lose its reason. And no matter how many pages I turn, it's still shocking. There are quite a few illustrations in the book. Some of them are drawings done in the camp, some are done years after, they're recollections. Nazis stamping on the prisoners who can't quite keep up, while the others are just standing in the rain, as they were often commanded to do for hours on end. I often wonder how grim and terrible the life must have been for the actual guards there. Of course they got respite at some point, but would you really want to be there, work there? It seems some of the guards quite took to it. There's a lot in the book about the various personalities, the capos who were selected from among the Poles, and Ukrainians often, and Belarusians who had to keep the others in order by the most cruel means you can imagine. You know, they're working for the Nazis, and they're in some ways even worse, because if they're not up to the job, their punishment is to be demoted and put back into the platoon that they were controlling, which will just kick them to death probably. So we get pictures of these characters, we get lots of pictures, photographs in prison uniform, for example, of a lot of the people that are involved. Sometimes there are family snapshots. One excellent thing about this book is that the pictures correspond to the text. It's quite remarkable. You'll be reading about some new character and up he pops at the bottom of the page there in one of these prison photographs that looks like a church triptych. Anyway, page after page of horror, of desperation, because again, as we've seen so many times, the idea that this was happening was kind of blanked. I don't know whether it was believed and rejected or simply not believed by people further west. But here we get tale after tale. How to kill a German guard with smallpox infected lice is quite an interesting one. And it worked. There's the often asked question of why did they not just plot and plan a time en masse when they could rise up and take command? And of course, one of the threads of this book is that they were on that all the time. That's exactly what they were trying to do, calculating the right moment. There are some escapes, but of course, prisoners who escape are condemning prisoners in the camp to be possibly tortured to death, certainly killed somehow. Although there's a strange slackening off as the war goes on. Things become more established. People know their place in the hierarchy. There are certain routines, certain little perks that you can get access to if you're clever and know the right people. And at the end of the day, we get the inside, as it were, the worm's eye view of what it was like in this camp that's so familiar to us from our films and novels and history. It's the story of this one man, how he got in there, what he found there, what happened to him when he got out. And once again, it's what should be a warning from history, with should be underlined.